I had access to a social security number and the ability to work at a decent job. When the time came, I got my driver's license, and it felt amazing to hold that piece of paper on my hand, a card that had my name, and it didn't label me as a different person. With DACA, I felt a sense of belonging. And because I was working at a job within my career path, I was able to help my parents financially, build my credit, and have dreams of buying a home one day. In 2016, various forms of fear and anxiety engulfed my daily life as the presidential campaign focused negatively on immigration. As a senior in high school, every class inevitably discussed the candidates and their messages, particularly the hurtful and negative words of then candidate Donald J. Trump. Unlike most of my peers, hearing this man describe my community in such negative ways left me feeling alone and uncertain about my future. When time came to apply for college, despite my concerns about the anti-immigrant rhetoric, I went forward and applied and was admitted to the University of California, Merced. As life would have it, I was not able to attend a four-year university right after high school, but I was not ready to give up then. That summer, I signed up to attend Pasadena City College with a promise to my parents that I would pursue my education to make them and this country proud. I'm on my way to making true one of my promise. In June, I will graduate with an associate's degree in sociology and have so far been accepted to attend California State University of San Jose and Sacramento. I am very thankful to be protected by DACA. This temporary protection has given me some relief, but I am keenly aware thousands upon thousands of young immigrants like myself, or those who did not qualify because they were a few years younger or older than me, did not even get to enjoy the little bit of freedom that I enjoyed with DACA. After President Trump canceled DACA in 2017, once again, I've lived with the uncertainty over my future and that of my family because of our immigration status. The desire to prove that I am somebody, that I am as American as our Star-Spangled Banner, but with a proud Oaxacan heritage. Yes. Keeps me moving forward and helps me stand here today, asking Congress to pass a permanent solution that will define permanently the lives of hundreds of thousands who, like me, contribute positively to this country. A historic event is taking place today here in Washington, D.C. I know so many people, like my sister and myself, who have waited decades to see a bill such as the DREAM Act passed and signed into law. I, for one, am extremely appreciative to the leaders moving forward this humane legislation and permanent solution to this limbo in which so many people live in. I really hope the Senate will hear and debate this bill objectively, and that President Trump signs it into law soon. My story, my roots, My efforts is in fact one of survival. And it's my experience as a young person of diverse background that makes me a strong, passionate, and determined U.S. citizen in waiting. Yes. Yes. I look forward to talking to legislators and as many people who want to hear about why this bill is not just about dreams, but about reality in a great, diverse, and strong country such as the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Charla. Angelica Salas is here. Thank you, Charla. Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez of New York, a heroine in this fight.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. But before I discuss the part of the legislation that I work on, I just want to say this is what America is all about. Jessica, you make our country a stronger country, and it's just unbelievable. We must honor the promise that we made to you. She is an American in every sense, but on paper. And today is the day that we're going to start reversing that. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. You have been a stalwart leader on this issue, and I know that with your leadership, we're going to finally tackle the pressing matter. Let me also thank my colleagues, Lucille Roybal-Allard and Yvette Clark. Thank you to all my colleagues who are here and the immigrants who are bravely making your voices heard. The issues that we are addressing today speak to who we are as a nation. What kind of nation do we want to be? Are we the America that has been defined by its immigrant heritage, that recognizes the entrepreneurial spirit and tireless work ethic immigrants bring to the table? Are we going to stand for the hardworking immigrants who come here fleeing natural disasters or civil wars? Or are we going to be a nation characterized by fear that turns inward and turns our back on those who come here to build a better life? Think about it. The Trump administration wants to send back immigrants who arrive in the U.S. to escape earthquakes and political violence. These are single mothers with children, fleeing domestic abuse and violence. These are people who have planted deep roots in their communities. The average TPS beneficiary has been here 20 years. They are our neighbors, our friends, and co-workers. They contribute, by the way, $4.5 billion in wages and salary to our nation's GDP. We are not going to let Donald Trump send them back, putting their lives in peril or tearing families apart. And we are not going to ask them to live in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. That is what this bill is about, which is why I am so proud to join with Lucille in authoring it. Portions of this bill are based on my legislation from last Congress, the American Promise Act, which for the first time provide TPS and DED beneficiaries a path to citizenship. It is past due time to provide these communities with fairness and certainty about their future, and that is what this bill will do. With that, let me introduce our next speaker, a TPS beneficiary, Heber Chavez.
First of all, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm here because I have TPS, and I work. I live in here for 19 years old in this country, United States. So I don't speak English well, but I try to, So I work in the United States for almost 20 years. I work in a hospital, Kaiser Permanente, a full-time job, and I have a part-time job too, at cooking. So we feel back in this moment because TPS is canceled in September. So we think about what happened after the TPS expired. So we have family. I have my children. So if we come back to my country, my son here want to come back with me. So that's what we're thinking about. It's not easy for everybody. We have TPS, and we have family here in my country too. So I don't speak too much, because I don't practice yesterday because I worked all night last night. So it's a surprise for me. So but I feel good. So we fight together for permanent residence. So
Thank you.
that's all. Thank you, everyone.
He's been acknowledged. Congresswoman Clark.
Good morning, everyone. It's certainly my honor, my privilege to come. I'm Congresswoman Yvette D. Clark of the 9th District of New York, which is Brooklyn. Brooklyn has always been a gateway for families and immigrants across this nation, and I am proud to stand here as the daughter of 2 Jamaican immigrants who came to the United States in the 1950s. I am here to be also the face of Black immigration. And oftentimes we don't realize that immigration is not relegated to any one particular nationality. All of us, if we go deep enough into our roots, will find that immigrant that was brave enough to come to add value to the growth and development of our nation. That's why I'm so proud to stand with Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez and Roybal Allard to introduce this legislation and be a co-lead on the Dream and Promise Act. As has been stated, this bill includes a pathway to citizenship and builds upon the DREAM Act, the American Promise Act, and the bipartisan Aspire TPS Act, which I introduced last Congress. Today we unify. We stand in unity for DACA recipients, TPS recipients, DED recipients. Their stories are so compelling because, as already been stated, our families and our communities are all being impacted. Immigration, let me repeat it again, is a Black issue. Black immigrant families are mixed status families. So when you unravel, when you have someone who's a citizen, someone who is a resident, someone is also a TPS holder, or someone else is a DACA recipient, you are talking about separating families, and we as a Congress cannot abide with that. Donald Trump has been targeting our communities, and with racial profiling, so many families are caught up in his enforcement. So we must act quickly. The DED deadline for Liberia is March 31st of this year. That's just 19 days away. Liberia has a long history with the United States that continues to this very day. Liberians have been on TPS and DED for over 20 years. The case of their temporary status for 20 years is an illustration of the real impact of a failing immigration system on everyday people. And so what we do today, the introduction of H.R. 6, and I must thank our speaker, who has been a champion, who has carried this issue on her shoulders. We must come through. We must come through for the American people, and that's why it's critical that we introduce and pass this bill at this time. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi, Congresswoman Roybal Allard, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, and to all my colleagues who have been working on this legislation and have been ardent defenders of our immigrant communities during this administration and long before that. So I am Congressman Mark Takano, a state that is home to more than 223,000 DACA recipients. And I want to begin by telling all of the Dreamers and TPS recipients who are here and watching from all corners of the country, you are Americans, you are valued, and you are here to stay. So, America is a promise of freedom, justice, and opportunity. And being an American is not defined by your immigration status, the color of your skin, or your country of origin. It is defined by a set of values we all share. Dreamers and TPS recipients are emblematic of what it means to be an American. They play by the rules, they contribute to society, they work hard, and yes, they even step up, they enlist, and put on the uniform of our country to serve our country. They do all this with the pride of knowing that they are working to achieve the American dream and fulfill the promise of America. But at the same time, they worry that one day they will be forced to leave their families and their home, and they do not deserve to be living in limbo and to be facing each day filled with uncertainty. The introduction of the Dream and Promise Act is a moral statement, a statement of the belief that those who have built their lives here, who are raising their families here, who are contributing to our communities, and who are fighting for our country, they deserve to stay here. Last Congress, the House did not have the moral and political courage to act on this important issue. Well, we are in charge now. And we are ready to protect those who have faced incessant attacks by this morally bankrupt and frankly un-American administration. And what is un-American are the attacks, the targeting, the lies, the distortions that are told about the people who have built and who build and who will be building our country. I am proud that our caucus has the moral clarity to protect and defend Dreamers and TPS and DED recipients. But we must also have the political courage to pass this legislation to make clear that immigrants are welcome here. So I echo and I amplify the chant, "Si se puede, sin miedo." And thank you. I would like to now introduce a great champion from California, my home state, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here this morning, and I have tremendous gratitude to my colleagues Lucille Roybal Allard, Nydia Velasquez, and Yvette Clark for the hard work they've put into a really very fine piece of legislation. You know, last week the House Judiciary Committee had the privilege to hear testimony from various Dreamers and TPS and DED recipients. And what we learned, actually we might have known it before, was that these individuals who have been here so long, in the case of the Dreamers virtually their whole lives, feel fully American. Their loyalty is to the United States of America, but they lack a piece of paper. For the young people brought here, they didn't make a decision, but here they are, Americans in every way, but their piece of paper. So that's the equities for them. But let's think about the equities for the United States. What we learn hearing from the medical student, hearing from the PhD candidate, understanding the individuals who are working in the healthcare sector and throughout our economy, the idea that we would yank thousands of people who are contributing to our economy would be a very serious wrong for the United States of America. It would do us harm in addition to the individuals. So let's pass this legislation promptly. Let's save the United States from that harm. I'm glad that we are not only joined by the authors of this legislation, but the legislation has the complete support of our leadership, which is so important. Speaker Pelosi, and now the person I'm pleased to introduce, our Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer.
Thank you, Chair Lofgren, a critical leader on the issue of immigration in our country, one of the most knowledgeable folks in our country on immigration. Thank you, my dear friend Lucille Roybal Allard, for introducing the DREAM Act, being so passionate and effective in getting it to where it is today. Nydia Velasquez, I think, has left, but thank you for putting in the legislation that will deal with the temporary protective status and DED. Gustavo is my good friend. How many of you are Casa de Maryland? Some personal pride there. Jessica, you are exceptional, but you're not the exception. I have talked to literally hundreds like Jessica who are making such a difference in our communities, in our states, in our countries right now. And you're one of those. But you are exceptional. And thank you very much for your commitment to America, for your commitment to making us a better country. Javier, thank you very much for your service last night. Were you in the hospital last night? Yeah. Taking care of patients.
Okay.
I went down with Senator Durbin to the White House about a year ago. Senator Durbin sat to the right of the president, I sat to the left of the president, and Senator Grassley asked him a question. Said, Mr. President, the Dreamers have not done anything wrong. The Dreamers have lived here almost all their lives. They know no other country. Mr. President, we need to make sure they can stay here. And Senator Feinstein, a Democrat, Senator Grassley, a Republican, asked the same question. And the president said, yes, we need to take care of that. And then we'll deal with comprehensive immigration reform, which we need to deal with. We need to fix a broken system. And as we left, the president said, you pass a bill and I will sign it. That's what the President of the United States said. He could have been saying it to all of you. Because I know when he meets exceptional people, he thinks that they ought to be here. We talk about America as a nation of immigrants. But guess what? America is America because those immigrants became citizens of America. And they helped build America. And they made America all that it could be. And they're continuing to do that. And very frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we need immigrants in America, as we always have, as we do today. Now, in 2012, President Obama signed legislation that said that we need the dreamers, and we welcome those for TPS status fleeing natural disasters, civil wars, violence, whatever the reason came here. I have a person in my district that Gustavo brought to my office, been here 25 years. He has a business with 40 employees, 40 families who depend upon him for their livelihood. And President Obama passed an executive order because he cared about those people, about making sure that they were without fear, Jessica, so that when those lights and maybe your tail lights out and that policeman stops, that you're not seized with fear because you know that checklist, you haven't done anything wrong. President Obama cared. 86% of the American people believe this bill ought to pass. 86%. And so the test with this legislation is DACA. Does America care again about making sure that Jessica nor any other person lives in fear if they're doing right by America and not sent to a country they don't know and have not been in for all, sometimes, of their, or at least the overwhelming majority of their lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to pledge our efforts. I am here as Majority Leader to pledge that this bill is going to be on the floor. Si se puede, si se puede, si se puede, si se puede, si se puede. And yes, we can, but what did the speaker say? Yes, we will. So dreamers, keep dreaming, because America needs your dreams. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm actually from Maryland.
Oh, wonderful. Where are you from? Dreams and promises.